Well, good day and welcome to you. It is August the 25th, and I hope wherever you happen to be, you are either having a wonderful morning, a great afternoon, or an even better evening, depending upon what it happens to be. And if you are perhaps new to this channel, I always like to introduce myself. My name is Gary Willing, and it's always good to see you, and I'm glad you're here. And here on Search for Signs, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We take a deeper look at why are the Masters and the Teacher coming back now? Why is it important that they do so at this particular time? And of course, what does it mean for you? And of course, everyone else. It's not just about you. There are billions of other people living on this planet. And what does it mean for everybody that they're coming back at this time? Now, I have about 350 to 400 videos laying it out in a very introductory way. Just that. Now, I always recommend doing some more research yourself because I can't really give you everything in one video. If you're interested in this information and want to know more, educate yourself more on it. If you want to see if there's any truth to it for yourself even, check out the links that I provided in the description portion of this video. I do recommend checking out the Share International link because there you can get more information than any of the other websites in one place. So you can listen to lectures by Benjamin Creme, the originator of this information. You can hear him speak when he was alive on radio, via recordings and so forth. You can see images of these miracles. You can see if they're happening all over the world and to every walk of life and every religious group. Like I claim on this channel, you can read letters to the editor of people claiming to have experiences with these masters and so forth. Some of those stories can be quite entertaining and light and fun. Other ones can be quite life-changing if you just read it like this and see if there's any truth to that for yourself. You can also read background information about Maitreya and his emergence. Of course, see his priorities firsthand and why it's so important that we create the principle of sharing in order to bring about justice and bring about peace. Why it's so important to SOP, save our planet, and so forth. So you can get all that information right there under one umbrella of a website. Now, I also have other websites like the George Adamski site and Crop Circle Connector and so forth. And one link that I seem to neglect to mention is there's a YouTube link that I put in there and provided coming from the Krishnamurti Society. And Krishnamurti lived, I think, up until the early or mid 1980s. And there's a lot of videos where he talks about a wide variety of subjects, but you can really get a sense, I think, better than anywhere else, about the teachings of Maitreya. Now, I focus mainly on his priorities, the need to bring about peace, the need to end hunger and so forth, the need to save our planet. But Maitreya says he comes to teach the art of self-realization, and he talks about the three tenets of that: honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. And he says that the self-realization is really realizing your own divine self. And only through honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment can somebody do that. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter. You don't have to stop being a Christian in order to realize the divinity in life and oneness in life by doing that. But I do think Krishnamurti, and watching those videos, you get a really good, you have a really good example of honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. You can hear the way he answers questions on a wide variety of topics, on what happens after death, to should I get married, to other sources, other questions and so forth. And listen to the way he talks, because he's manifesting in real time honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment in a way that you don't really get anywhere else. So I do think it's a great link for that as well. And then there's other links that I have in there as well. Now, if you have a question about this and you want to know more and you think that I might be able to give you a little bit better answer than you would, you can always post your question in the comment section, and I try to answer it in the next video. Or you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com as well. Now, in this particular video, I want to read a couple articles, and then I want to end it on a high note, coming from a message from Maitreya himself. Now, I'll tell you right now, the message wasn't given to me directly. I'm reading it via a book, but I do think it applies to what's going on today for some people. So hopefully it will give you a greater sense of hope. Now, the first article I want to read, again, is the shorter one, And he's talking about the environment, a call to reason, and then I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about it and segue into the next one, if you don't mind. All right. Now, the call to reason was published in Share International on December 2014. The time is soon coming when men will realize that the most important problem facing this generation is the ecological imbalance which threatens vast areas of Earth. As you know, men are divided as to the extent of this problem, but unless their intention is squarely fixed on this ecological dilemma, the future for many is under question. So many groups will realize the full import of this danger that, year by year, little separates them from disaster. The forces unleashed by global warming are now well beyond the control devices available to men. Hearken, therefore, while there is still a little time, for the waters rise inexorably, and men gamble blithely with their future. SOP, Save Our Planet. Now, a few things I want to talk about before I read the next article about the sort of cleavage, the division. You know, if you are watching current events via the news or the internet, you know, YouTube videos, whatever it happens to be, you can see this very easily, right? That there's divisions in ideological viewpoints, whether it's divisions politically, economically, approach to education, approach to religious beliefs, spirituality, even the environment, there's divisions, of course. Why are there divisions? That's what the next article is going to address. But this particular one, talking about the environment, talking about how dangerous global warming is. In fact, to use Benjamin Creme's master's words and emphasize it, he says, little separates them from disaster. You know, if we're not, you know, taking this problem seriously. According to the masters, those who believe climate change is man-made and caused by man and man's misuse of the environment, and those people who believe it's natural causes are really both right. But it's the percentage. It's 80% caused by man and 20% of natural causes. So, you know, if it was the other way around, I think it wouldn't be quite as severe. But because it's man's fault and it's man's problem, that's what's creating the real issue. It is for man to solve the problem, and it can be solved by man. But the deniers of climate change and those who are fighting to prevent its destruction are divided in their thinking. And that's the reason why I want to talk about the next video. But here's the thing. As dangerous as climate change and global warming is for those who are very concerned about it, and even for the masters talking about it, and Ben's master mentioned it in many articles about how dangerous climate change really is becoming. And he even said it's out of our hands now. It's really, what did he say? It's beyond the control devices available to men. Okay, so we really can't solve the problem anymore. It's going to not past the tipping point, but there's nothing really humanity can do on its own. It's going to take higher help to help us, I guess, that's the way I interpreted that. But the single biggest problem, according to the masters, is not climate change. It's the invisible peril of nuclear radiation. It's pollution that is totally invisible. We can't see it, we can't taste it, we can't smell it, and we can't feel it. And we really see the effects of it in very dramatic ways, but we're not attributing it to that because we don't realize the cause of these problems. But the vast majority of the illnesses, cancers, even Alzheimer's and heart disease, according to these masters, is caused by nothing more than the way that humanity is processing nuclear power. And we think it's safe, or scientists say that it's safe, but it's not. It's so fine and so light that it goes everywhere. That pollution is everywhere and it affects everything. It's the reason why the bees are, you know, kind of spontaneously falling to the ground dead. Animals are dying off at an alarming rate. We ourselves are dying off at an alarming rate. It's because of nuclear radiation. Now, the division in thought, I also want to address on this, because I've had people in my life who I've talked about climate change, and those who are deniers of climate change, of course, see it as some kind of liberal narrative that the liberals, the liberal media is putting out there to promote for some reason. And they don't buy it because it's coming from them or it's coming from the left or the Democrats, those damn Democrats, whatever it is, right? And it's funny when I talk about that and they're, oh, there's no such thing as that. And I say, well, what about just regular pollution? Do you believe in that? And like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. Do you see water pollution, air pollution? Oh, of course. You know, you see littering on the sidewalks and on the streets and that kind of thing. You see how dirty our cities are. Oh, absolutely. You don't deny that, right? But you deny climate change. Yeah. Well, can't you just focus on that and what you can do to fix that problem? Because that's a problem too, right? And they're like, well, nobody's ever talked to me like that, about that. And I said, yeah, we've all forgotten about just the fact that we can see the pollution. Now, whether it's causing climate change or not, it's for us to kind of come to the truth to it for ourselves at some point, but we can't deny that there's not pollution out there, right? Now, you could deny that there's this invisible peril because you can't see it, but as time goes on, more and more people are going to become aware of it because Maitreya himself will start bringing it to our attention that this is the most dangerous thing that we are doing to everyone in our planet. Now, the thing that is giving us time, and this is where I think this information kind of ties into it, and it might sound really crazy if you're coming to this information for the first time, it's actually because of the efforts of the Space Brothers and these UFOs that it's actually giving us extra time. And we don't see them all the time. Sometimes we do. Sometimes there's evidence of them in videos here or there, but they're everywhere in our skies, cleaning up the higher levels of physicality known as the etheric. And that's where they're coming from. They're coming from the highest levels of the physical plane, called the etheric planes on our higher planets in our solar system. But they're here on a spiritual mission. George Adamski talked about it. The link is in the description. You can read more about his meetings with them and him riding in their spaceships. You can read more about it on the Sharon National website. Of course, you can see evidence of UFOs and some of the links that I put in there, even with the crop circle connector, and you can see evidence that way and so forth. But they're here on a spiritual mission, and their biggest reason why they're working in the way that they're working and as hard as they're working is because they're helping us to sustain the environment enough until we make the right choice and move away from the edge, is what it amounts to. But they are buying us some time. Now, to segue it into the next article, the Sword of Cleavage, we talk about it a lot on this channel because it's something that's going on in the world and it needs to be addressed because whether we're aware of it or not, we're aware of the divisions. Now, it begs the question, and this is the question I hope that reading this article will help answer, whether you believe in this information 100% or not, is the divisions in ideological thinking, is it permanent? Is it going to be like this is what life's going to be like for the next 10,000 years, or is it something temporary? Why is it going on? Is it going to destroy us in the end? Those are legitimate questions. You know what I'm saying? And so, because it just seems like every single day, more and more people are becoming more and more divided in our thinking. In fact, we're all becoming more and more divided in our thinking. This energy, the sword of cleavage, is affecting each and every one of us, according to these masters, without exception. It's bringing out the best in us and the worst in us at the same time. And if you look, and what is the sword of cleavage, even, if you want to start with that, right? Well, Jesus said in the Bible, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword. He could have been talking about during his time, which I think he was to some extent talking about his time, but he was also talking about the future role of the Christ at this coming time, about what the love nature of God will do to humanity, in terms of, not do to humanity, but bring out of humanity that division, because the division's always been there. It's just hasn't been quite as clear and as divided as it is today. But even during Jesus' time, because of the Christ nature, the love nature of God, it brought out the best in those who were wanting to change, and the worst in those who were trying to keep things the way they were, with the status quo. And if you look at the Bible historically, that's what happened. It wasn't because of Jesus, it's because the love nature of God is impartial, but it affects change, and it affects everyone. It brings out who and what we are. That's the sword of cleavage. So Jesus wasn't talking about a physical sword with a grip and a blade and so forth. He was talking about what the love nature does initially to people, in terms of the effect that it has on it. Now, you also could look at what Jesus talked about in terms of the law of cause and effect and how it's affecting that as well, because the sword of cleavage really does fit into the law of cause and effect, equal and opposite reaction. Jesus said, what you sow shall you reap. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. I talked about it in a video or two before about Afghanistan, just what's going on and manifesting and precipitating this week with the United States pulling out of Afghanistan and creating that void, right? It created chaos, anarchy, violence and uncertainty in that region. The exact opposite of what was promised from the Bush administration. But yet, even if you went back and looked even further, there were causes set in motion that created the effects that are happening today and probably will continue to happen based on the misuse of our free will in this country and attacking and occupying and trying to create this nation buildings the way that we're doing, which will never bring about peace, stability, democracy, goodwill as promised by our world leaders. It will never bring it about. It only brings about more chaos, more violence, more terrorism, more bloodshed than it did then. You see, it's the law of cause and effect. Now, where the cause and effect fits into the sword of cleavage, okay, and then I'll read the article, is we are setting, as a people, as humanity, we are setting in motion a cause that's going to create effect for one or the other, for good or for ill, but it's going to be based on our choice. This is the generation of choice, this humanity in incarnation today, each and every one of us. So when you look around, you go to the store, you look at the person in line with you, they're all a part of it too. Every single person without exception is making up this generation of choice. Now, this is a little dramatic, but I do think there's some truth to this. If we could go into the future, or we could see the future generations, even ourselves in those future generations, they're all calling to us from the future, telling us to make the right decision. And what Maitreya says, the first decision we and the choice we have to make is we have to look at ourselves as one and come together as one. The only way to do that is to bring about the principle of sharing, because that will set in motion the cause too, which will bring about the effect of justice, bring about peace. Then we can tackle problems like the environment, but it's becoming condition critical. I know people, unfortunately, in the past have commented on this channel even about why am I not giving out new information? This is the same stuff that Benjamin Creme talked about. This is the most important thing that we could all be looking at, is the need to bring about sharing. The most important thing is not talking about the mystical side of this or the future work of even Maitreya and these things. The most important thing is to put into motion an action and help to manifest the principle of sharing. And that's why there's a link in there about the Marshall Plan, because that's exactly what it was. And it will be, is a global Marshall Plan where you give excesses of what the country has to other countries that need it, and they can use it for their people freely and so forth. Then that nation can give back in payment what they have excess of, whether it's a lot or a little. So it's like that kind of deal. But we have to start doing this globally in order to solve the problems. So that will set in motion causes. But as Benjamin Creme said, humanity will take it right to the edge. We won't go over the edge, but we're going to take it right to the edge. And we're there. We can actually see the abyss now. Where this sort of cleavage comes in, and this master is going to talk about it, is the importance of it is because it's going to help humanity make the choice. We have to see clearly these divisions in order for the choice to be made. Now, hopefully this will lighten the mood a little bit. Maitreya says the end is always known from the beginning, and he knows the answer, our answer to that choice, and our answer makes him glad. And the masters talk about how they can even see that and claim that as true. So, and if you listen to this, when he talks about the master's viewpoint on time and how they see time, and how our limited view of time is what's creating the anxiety and stress in all our lives today, right? But this sort of cleavage, this Christ principle is affecting each and every one of us. If you look at yourself with honesty of mind and detachment, you will see that it's affecting even you. It's making you more of who you are. It's bringing out the best in you and the worst in you at the same time. And so it's doing it with me, it's doing it with everybody else. So I'm all a part of it too. I'm not excluded from it either. But that's what's creating the divisions in thought. But is it temporary or is it permanent? This is where this, I think, answers this. All right, so this article was published in October 2014. Many people believe that despite the presence of Maitreya in the world, everything is becoming more threatened and unstable than hitherto. They wonder what hierarchy is doing to ease the many problems and difficulties that leave them afraid and unprepared for the heightened tension of today. The truth is, the world is being prepared. In times of great tension and change, people look at problems with a limited view, which they inevitably have, of the true state of society. Humanity imagines that all these events have the same impact and importance for the future, whereas the true view, which only the masters can see, is altogether different. The masters see the happenings as they are occurring on a flat plane as a potential only. They know that some will precipitate and affect world change, while others will simply wither away without any precipitation at all. Humanity, with its limited vision, sees all these events as bearing on the future, but this assuredly is not the case. From the Master's point of view, humanity has never been so ready for the new world that the future will bring. It has never been so near a time of inspiration and readiness to work for the common weal. When the Christ said that he would return in such a time as we think not, he would bring not soft words or spurious peace, but a sword, the sword of cleavage, which would separate father from son, brother from brother. It is precisely the action of the sword of cleavage that we are witnessing today. Maitreya's energy of love stimulates everyone, the one who loves and works for justice and sharing, but also the one who causes the divisions, schisms, and greed in the world. In this way, through the clear opposition created by the sword of cleavage, men can arrive at a true choice for the future of all, for all men, the poor and the hungry, as well as the men of money and the destroyers of peace in the world. Each of us must choose on which side of that division we find our truth. So that's what Benjamin Creme's master said is really happening today in the divisions of thought. That it's a necessity, but it's also a direct result of the love nature of God, which stimulates each and every one of us without exception. All right, now to leave it on a high note, this is a message from Maitreya that was given to Benjamin Creme on October the 7th, 2014, right before he passed away, a couple years before he died. He says, "When men see me for the first time and know me for what I am, they will find themselves changing inwardly. Many will for a time return to the joy of childhood and find the world a better home thereby. Many will feel strengthened in their desire to serve and to place themselves in the forefront of change. These are the ones on whom I shall call for the task of replenishment of man's spirit and joy. Believe if you can that I am with you, ready to use my strength on your behalf. Believe, if you can, my friends, that I am eagerly awaiting the day of my open return." So those are the words of Maitreya coming through Benjamin Creme a few years back. Now, one thing he told me, and I'll leave you with this, for those of us who are hearing this information for the first time, and for those of us who have heard this information before and are perhaps wondering whether there's any truth to it or not, and those of us who know without a shadow of a doubt that it's real. These words are for everyone. But he told me on the street one time, right before his first television interview, he said, "You're going to see me on TV real soon, and we're going to change the world together. You have a great day." Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.